In a war defined by knights, kings, and castles, it was an illiterate teenage girl who changed everything. Joan of Arc wasn't born a warrior or a princess. She was just a peasant from a tiny village. Yet somehow she became the most important figure of the 100 Years' War. But how did a teenage girl from nowhere rise to lead armies, challenge kings, and alter the course of history? What mysterious visions drove her to confront powerful leaders and face down armies? And why, centuries later, is Joan still remembered as one of history's greatest heroes? In this episode, we journey back to medieval France to uncover the incredible story of Joan of Arc, the Maid of Orléans. We'll explore how her unshakable faith and extraordinary courage transformed a failing kingdom, inspired a nation, and turned the tide against the English. Joan's journey was one of extraordinary belief, bravery, and boldness. A story that challenges our assumptions about who can change the world. Prepare to witness the dramatic rise of a young woman who defied every expectation, proving that sometimes the greatest heroes emerge from the most unlikely places. Because Joan's story isn't just about war or victory, it's about how one person's courage can echo through history forever. Joan of Arc's story begins in a small village called Domremy, nestled quietly in the rural countryside of northeastern France. Born around 1412 to humble peasant parents, Joan's life seemed destined for obscurity, filled with farm chores, village festivals, and quiet devotion to her Catholic faith. There was nothing extraordinary about her upbringing, yet everything changed when Joan claimed to hear voices from heaven. Around age 13, Joan began experiencing visions she attributed to angels and saints, specifically St. Catherine, St. Margaret, and the Archangel Michael. These divine messengers, she said, delivered a powerful and astonishing message. She must help France reclaim its freedom from English domination and crown the rightful king, Charles VII, who was known as the Dauphin. At first, Joan kept these revelations secret, aware of how absurd they would seem. Yet over time, the voices became impossible to ignore, compelling her to act. Convinced of her divine purpose, Joan transformed from a quiet farm girl into a determined visionary, unwavering in her belief that she alone could lead France to victory. Initially met with skepticism, even ridicule, by her family and villagers, Joan remained determined. Her unwavering resolve eventually convinced a local commander to grant her an audience with the French military leaders. This was unprecedented, a teenage peasant girl claiming to have divine visions, urging commanders to trust her in matters of national importance. What made Joan truly extraordinary wasn't simply the visions she claimed, but her ability to inspire and persuade others. Despite overwhelming odds, her sincerity, determination, and faith resonated powerfully, captivating influential figures who usually wouldn't have listened to someone of her humble background. Yet her journey from obscure village girl to national visionary wasn't easy. Joan faced relentless scrutiny, suspicion, and disbelief at every step. Each meeting and decision tested her courage and resolve. But Joan never wavered, convinced that her divine mission was genuine, her faith providing her with unbreakable strength. When she finally set out to meet Charles VII, Joan wasn't just pursuing a personal vision. She was carrying the hopes of an entire nation desperate for freedom and victory. Her journey had transformed her from a nobody into a powerful symbol of hope and resistance. But what exactly happened when Joan confronted the future King of France? How could a teenage girl convince a skeptical court and a hesitant Dauphin that she alone could lead France to victory? To answer that, we must follow Joan as she steps boldly into the heart of power at Chinon. Joan's journey to meet Charles VII, known as the Dauphin, took her across dangerous territory and into the heart of France's political turmoil. Arriving at the royal castle of Chinon in February 1429, Joan stepped into a world completely foreign to her humble background, one of intrigue, suspicion, and power struggles. At the royal court, skepticism awaited her. The Dauphin and his advisors, aware of Joan's claims, viewed her as either a fraud, a fanatic, or a possible divine messenger. To test Joan's authenticity, they devised a clever challenge. When she arrived, Charles disguised himself as a common courtier, blending unnoticed among his entourage. Remarkably, Joan walked straight to Charles, correctly identifying him without hesitation, despite never having seen him before. This astonishing feat stunned the court, leaving them both intrigued and unsettled. How had this peasant girl identified the Dauphin so effortlessly? Yet Charles, still wary, subjected Joan to further tests. Theologians interrogated her relentlessly, searching for signs of heresy or deception. Joan's steadfastness, sincerity, and remarkable clarity in describing her divine visions left even her harshest critics reluctantly impressed. After weeks of scrutiny, the court's theologians concluded Joan was sincere and possibly divinely inspired, further legitimizing her extraordinary claims. Persuaded by her conviction and desperate for victory, Charles finally granted Joan command. Not as a traditional leader, but as a symbolic and spiritual guide for French troops. Joan was equipped with armor, a banner depicting religious imagery, and even given a sword she claimed had been revealed to her by her voices, buried beneath the altar of a church. With Charles's reluctant blessing, Joan prepared to lead French troops in a daring attempt to break the Siege of Orléans, a critical turning point in the war. Skepticism lingered, yet many believed Joan might indeed be France's last hope. Her departure from Chinon wasn't just symbolic, it was transformational. Joan had convinced a king and his court to place the fate of France in the hands of a teenage peasant girl guided by divine visions. But could she truly deliver on her promises? How would French soldiers, seasoned by years of defeat, respond to her leadership? And could Joan genuinely alter the momentum of a war that had seemed all but lost? To discover the answers, we must journey alongside Joan as she heads into battle, determined to fulfill her incredible destiny. When Joan arrived at the Siege of Orléans in April 1429, she found a city trapped by months of devastating English attacks, its defenders exhausted and morale shattered. French soldiers, initially skeptical of following a teenage girl, quickly discovered Joan was no ordinary leader. From the moment Joan entered the battlefield, she inspired a dramatic shift in morale. She boldly rode into battle clad in armor, carrying her iconic banner bearing the image of Christ and the fleur-de-lis, symbols powerful enough to rally the exhausted French forces. Her courage, charisma, and unwavering confidence ignited newfound bravery and determination among the troops. Joan wasn't merely symbolic, she displayed impressive strategic instincts, suggesting attacks that surprised even seasoned commanders. Under her guidance, the French launched swift and aggressive assaults against English positions. Her presence on the front lines, rallying her soldiers while under direct enemy fire, became legendary, earning their deep respect and admiration. Within days, Joan achieved a stunning victory, breaking the months-long siege. The liberation of Orléans wasn't just a military triumph, it was a psychological turning point. French soldiers who had grown accustomed to defeat now felt hope for the first time in years. Joan's victory inspired belief across France that divine intervention was on their side, dramatically shifting the war's momentum. Buoyed by this success, Joan convinced Charles VII to advance swiftly toward Reims, the traditional coronation city for French kings. Despite heavy English resistance, Joan's charismatic leadership continued to deliver extraordinary victories at towns along the way, solidifying her reputation as a true heroine. At Reims, Charles VII was crowned King of France, fulfilling Joan's divine mission and her original promise. Her extraordinary vision, once ridiculed, was now undeniably real. Joan had not only transformed a peasant girl's dream into reality, but also restored the very heart of French sovereignty. Yet despite her incredible successes, Joan's journey was far from over. As she continued leading French forces, danger loomed closer. Her boldness on the battlefield made her a target, and eventually Joan was captured by enemy forces, leading to a dark and tragic final chapter. How did Joan's stunning victories ultimately lead to her capture and trial? And why would the very nation she saved fail to protect her? To understand Joan's ultimate fate, we must confront the tragic end awaiting one of history's greatest heroes. Joan of Arc's legacy extends far beyond her battlefield victories. After her tragic capture, trial, and execution at just 19, Joan became a powerful symbol of French identity, resilience, and faith. Centuries later, she was canonized as a saint, solidifying her status as a spiritual and national icon. Today, Joan's story continues to inspire countless generations, proof that one person's courage, belief, and sacrifice can indeed change history. Her remarkable journey from humble origins to legendary status symbolizes hope, defiance, and the timeless truth that even the smallest voices can echo through history, inspiring millions to find their courage. Joan of Arc's story proves that heroes don't always wear crowns or armor. Sometimes they're ordinary people driven by extraordinary courage. Her legacy is a powerful reminder that belief and bravery can change history, even against impossible odds. Yet Joan's story isn't over. Her capture led to one of history's most controversial trials, raising profound questions. Was she a saintly martyr or a heretical witch? Join us next time as we uncover the gripping truth behind Joan of Arc's trial and tragic execution, a story of betrayal, courage, and redemption that still captivates the world today. Subscribe and like this video. Part 9, Joan's trial and execution, coming soon. This is History Replay, this day,